Let's bring in now former Congressman Mike Rogers into our inner circle. He headed up the House Intelligence Committee. It's always great to have the congressman with us. So what does this tell you about Putin's frame of mind, Congressman?
Yeah, and we have to be careful about how we read this. Two things I think happen here. So the head of his FSB, which was originally designed after the KGB went away and they made it the SVR, which was their external, like the CIA. The FSB was more like our FBI. They gave the FSB internal intelligence gathering for the old Soviet republics. So Ukraine was in that order set. So the head of, which means that they were giving money to political parties, they were giving money to cause chaos across Ukraine leading up to the war. And this was for years, not just recently. Okay. And the speculation is saying that there was some inappropriating funds and that the intelligence was wrong, just dead wrong, about what resistance they would find in Ukraine. So that's the kind of thing you're seeing. His Shoigu, who his defense minister, is still there. He's very loyal to Putin. He's not a military guy, by the way. He did emergency services back in the day. Right. And so you have this kind of weird mix. He's getting it, he's shrinking it. He's taking these folks who he believes made horrible strategic decisions, and they're going to pay a heavy price for it.
Well, we also are hearing reports that he's worried about getting poisoned himself and changing out several of his workforce members. And he's also, as we're seeing now, purging his enemies, including Alexei Navalny, his main critic, just sentenced to 9 years. And not to forget, they poisoned the guy, for crying out loud.
Yeah, well, listen, this has all the hallmarks of the Stalin purges in the 30s, where he went through and he killed people in the Communist Party and everything else to solidify his power. This is a sign of paranoia. And they still believe, there's an interesting reporting, that the conflict is not going terribly for them. This is the Russians. But they believe that there's lots of bad decisions, and he's going to end, that people are starting to get soft back home. That's where these purges are going to happen. He's going to go after people who he thinks are getting soft. I always find it interesting when they show pictures of him in the state meetings where he's at one end of a very large gymnasium-sized room and his staff is on the other side of that gymnasium-sized room. Some of that is a little bit paranoia about who he lets get close to him. And his inner circle has shrunk, which means you're going to make a lot more bad decisions because you don't have diversity of input. This is, I think, a really dangerous time, but I also would remind folks, he thinks that by the fact he's creating these massive refugee populations in countries that are almost at the breaking point of how to handle it, and he's doing this, I argue, a civilian punishment campaign in Ukraine to try to break their will, he's going to keep doing that. He can do this for a very long time, and that's what we have to be careful of, and why we need to give all the weapons that we can, and we need to allow them to defend themselves, because he thinks that part's going just fine, even though he's having casualties. Yep, the resistance is harder. This is a really dangerous time, and he can do this for a long time. We need to kind of buckle down and get this right.
What do you make, Congressman, of the White House warnings about these cyber attacks coming from Russia? How serious is this, and how serious do you think they could be? And I guess, are you worried at all that this might be something that would make this worse and perhaps escalate the situation?
Oh, definitely. We've watched the Russians have interesting capability. They've, remember the Colonial Pipeline? They shut down the operation of a pipeline, which caused gas problems on the East Coast. We know that they've been in different utilities around the country. We've been able to get them out. When I say in, they have cyber capability. They penetrated into the networks and have the ability to cause some problem. We watched them in our financial markets way back in 2012. So we've seen that they have this high-end capability to be disruptive and shut things off. And I mean shut things off, meaning you just don't get to reboot your computer. It's gone. There's everything on it's gone. So we know they have that capability. The only thing that made me nervous is the U.S. government basically said, hey, business community, a nation state might come get you. Good luck with that. We need to have a more unified collective defense here going on, because this is serious. This is about as serious as it gets.
Congressman, I'm up against the clock here, but I did want to get you on something else. Jason Beardsley said he thinks this ends in negotiations. Where do you think it ends? Because there really are only a couple of options.
I think there's going to be a negotiated settlement. There has to be, honestly. I mean, again, he can be there a very long time and cause a lot of pain and agony. And we all in the West shouldn't be so tough that we're willing to kill lots of Ukrainians to make our point. I think it has to be a negotiated settlement. It should be soon. There are other ways and pressure points we can get them after we get them to stop killing people.
Former Congressman Mike Rogers chaired the House Intelligence Committee. It's always great to have you as well. Thank you, sir.
Thanks for having me.
President, thank you for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.